everyone, and welcome to our Java tutorial hosted by Murex the Coder. And in this tutorial, we'll be talking about classes, which is the beginning of the discussion of the pillar of OOP. And I hope you guys will be able to understand these concepts. It's so basically OOP is not really understood by many because of how not easy it is in terms of understanding the concepts. But if you truly learn the concepts and you give yourself time to understand each and every concept and be able to put everything together and know when would you apply certain concepts, when would you apply certain concepts, it will become easy. So in this tutorial we'll just discuss classes, and in the future tutorials we'll further continue to discuss the pillars of OOP, which includes encapsulation, polymorphism, abstraction. We will discuss all these topics when we get to them, but we don't want to be rushing to them. We just want to go through them step by step, right? So the first question that comes is what is a class, right? So we have to first define a class. Yes, previously we've been seeing classes. We've been creating a class because each and every Java program you have contains a class, right? um, so a class is a blueprint from which objects are created, right? And I want you to also reframe or rewind a bit from what I said previously, that every Java application, every Java class, right? Or every Java application has the main method, but not every Java class has a main method. Now, what do I mean by that? Is that you see, you can create a class that has the methods that you want to use, but not in that class, but from a different class or from your class, which is or which you consider as your main application. So basically, you use the class and the methods in that class without having to have a main method inside there. So basically, your main method is where your application is, where you're running everything, regardless of whether it's using different classes and all that, right? So that's just one of the things you wanna keep in mind, and not make a mistake of, because most people they make a mistake and they always have the main class in their classes, which is not the case, because the main class, that's where you're running your program, right? So you don't want to be running your program where you're just using, so you just define a blueprint with methods that you want to use later on in your application, right? And now let's just discuss what we find inside the class, and we'll talk about the concepts that we get to find there, because concept wise, some people get to be confused whenever a certain concepts have been thrown around while they know exactly what it is. Just that due to the concept that is being thrown at them, they think that it's not what they think it is, but it is what they think it is. So for instance, inside the class we find attributes, right? But most people know attributes as variables, right? But attributes and variables are one and the same thing. And then you're gonna have methods or functions, and I'm not gonna talk about this now, but there's a way that you can manipulate the properties of a class. For instance, right, there's this method for converting to string, right? It has its own method. You can override that in a class and override so basically you're overwriting the default classes that are there by default, in such a way that instead of that method doing what it was defined to do, you can override it to do what you want it to do, and we'll discuss as we move further in our tutorials, right? Cool. So we also have a constructor. You may have a constructor as well if you want in your class, and you can have parameters or no parameters, but now we'll discuss a bit about a constructor, what it is, but it's basically something that you know, just that it's a little bit different from others, because some refer to it as a special class, some refer to it as a special method, right? But the same one, the same thing. Cool. So, what is a constructor, right? A constructor is a special method that is used to initialize objects or initialize attributes, as to say. Um, so basically, your attributes are your objects, and you wanna initialize those objects, right? It's object of different types. Maybe you have object of a string, you have object of an integer, and I do hope that you guys do recall from what we discussed previously when we talk about or when we spoke about objects, what objects are, right, and how you define an object or the format or the syntax of defining an object. If not, just revise to that video and you will be sorted. Just as instantiation, we talk about this word before. If you are finding it difficult to fully understand, just rewind back a bit to the previous tutorial before you get to this tutorial. But then basically a constructor, it is called when you are creating an object. So this is during the class instantiation, so creating an object of this class, right? Cool. So you can also have parameters, as I mentioned. So basically you can set initial values based on your constructor, and then you have methods that gets the value or just use it as it is. And then one thing that you must understand about a constructor is that it does not have a return type. This is a bit weird because that's why most people, they kind of refer to it as a class or special class, because mostly the understanding of methods is that a method, if it doesn't have a return type, well, you just put void, right? But in this case, that's not the case, right? In this case, it does not have a return type, right? And we'll discuss this as we get to the application as to what or how do you actually go about defining a constructor, right? This is the syntax of a constructor, right? You have access modifier. So this is just to specify whether is it public, is it private, and then you have the class name. Just to bear in mind that if it's private, you won't be able to create okay, let's not complicate this. We'll get to this when we get to full discussion of the whole thing, or when we get deeper, because if I go that deep, I might confuse people. So let's just leave it as it is. So you have an access modifier, and then you have a class name, right? And then you have parentheses, and then you have the body. There's no void or return type in this case, right? Cool. So without any further ado, let's get to the application, and I hope you guys are gonna enjoy this one, and then you guys will be able to see why I prefer Vim in terms of doing all this, because you wanna understand the whole process of how it works, right? So I'm gonna create a mkdir classes, and then there we go. I'm gonna just move to classes. There we go. So I have nothing inside, right? And then I'm gonna create a class. Let's just call it murex.java, right? And then we're gonna start, right? Class murex, and then we have, that's the class murex, right? So basically this is the class that we're gonna create, and then we're gonna have the main method, right? So in this case, I wanna first define a class without a constructor, which just has attributes and methods, right? So attributes, let's say age, and then let's say name, but name has to be a string. There we go. Maybe we just initialize them there. Age, I'm 50 years old. Name is Murex the coder. There we go. And then we have methods, right? Get methods. So the reason I'm calling them get methods is because they're gonna get those strings and print them out, right? So I'm gonna have a void display age, and then what I'm gonna do is system dot out dot print line, and say my name is and then I say name, right? There we go, and that's how we end our statement. Ooh, question mark, why question mark? And then this is gonna be void display name. Okay, display age. You'll see why I'm doing this just now. So basically there we use name, right? So we just have to change that to name so that we don't have to get to repeat everything like our text display name what. And then what we're gonna do there is just system dot out dot print line, and age old. There we go. And that's basically our class, right? That's basically our class. We have age, and then we have string, right? So basically we have two attributes, which is the age and the name, and then we just have methods that are gonna display information stored in those variables, right, or attributes. So let's close this file. So this is the file that we have, right? And then now we're gonna create our main class, and then in this class main public static void main, and then we have there we go, string array args. Cool. So we have a class called Murex, right, under the same directory, right? So now we can just create an object of that class inside this directory, and we call those methods, right? So Murex is equals to new Murex. There we go. And then we just say Murex dot display name. That's the first function that we have. Murex dot display age, the function that we have, right? So if you check now, we have these two files, right? Now I want to compile the first one, it's Murex, right? Then see if there are any errors or not. Let's leave it to the compiler. There we go. So if you see, what happened is that it compiled, and this is the executable file of this class, which is going to be used by this class. So when you instantiate a class, this is going to use this and not that, right? Now if I say javek main, and then I run that, let's see if it's gonna compile. There we go, right? So basically now we have this class. This class already makes use of this class, right? Now if I say java main, and then you will see that this calls these two methods, right? And then if you check our class, right, this is our main class, it only has those methods, so it's calling us using methods inside this class, right? That's basically what a class is. Basically, you create a class and then you have your set of methods. Instead of you always defining that code or having it in your main class, you just have methods that can use that class. So basically you can also have an object in a sub method or a method and then you create an object of that class and use that method in that class, and then you have your main, which you just call whatever method that you're calling, which makes it easy for you to do things. And now let's quickly create another class. So I'm just going to remove yes, cool, we're just going to remove those, and then we have this, right? So now I'm going to create a different class in this class, and then I'm just going to call it class MurexTheCoder. Murex the coder, right? .java. Cool. Class Murex there we go. And then in this class I'm gonna have two things, right? I'm gonna have char, and then it's letter, and then I am gonna have let's have a float, and then decimal, there we go. And then I'm gonna have a constructor, right? Constructor. So the format is the access modifier, right? So I want to make it public, and then the name of the class, and that's it, right? And also do play around with this. I wanted to mention this previously there in the slides, but I think it's better if you just play around with this and see what happens using the same thing, using the same format, and see what if you make it private. Then you can learn a thing or two, and then combine that with what you learn based on what you get when you're doing the theory, and then you will see how everything gets to work. Cool. So in this case, what I'm going to do is use a keyword this. So what this keyword, it refers to the object of this class, right? And then it's going to refer to that letter, and then I can just give it 50, right? So but in this case, let's not use this for now. Let's just use it as it is, since it's accessible in this class. And then we have decimal, which is 50.6.69, and I know I made a mistake there. It's a character, which is just a, so provide that, right? Yeah. And then after that, we're just gonna print everything on our main class, right? So we created a different class with a constructor, right? Now we go to our main, and then what we're going to do there now is create an object Murex the coder, and then it's Murex the coder, and then it's Murex the coder, and then we have that, right? And then now we're just gonna do this print out system.out.print line, and then I'm gonna have letter, right? And then I'm gonna use Murex the coder dot letter, right? And then if I zoom out, there we go. And then I'm gonna have the same thing, system.out.print line, and then I have float or decimal. We name it decimal, and then it's gonna be Murex the coder dot decimal. There we go. And then we save that, right? So that's what we have, right? This is a new class that we have. Remember, we already have another class again as well before, right? So you can have as many objects of different classes in your main method. So basically you can have many classes which are designed or dedicated for specific methods, right, or specific application, right, and use them in your code. So now what we're gonna do now is that we have these three classes, right? So the first thing is to compile this class, and to compile this class, then we're gonna compile this class, which depends on those two classes, but then it has to have access to the executable files, not these ones. So javec Murex, and okay, let's like do it. So only accepted if annotation explicitly. What did I do to class Murex now? Vim Murex. What did I do to Murex? Did I even touch Murex? There we go. So this is Murex. What did I do to Murex? I did nothing. Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay, let's see what we did there. Clear. Oh, I think I see what I did, because I didn't touch Murex. So I compiled the wrong file, and then javec MurexTheCoder, right? Let's see if we're gonna have any errors or not. Double to float. Okay. There's a little bit of that. So basically there, since it's a float, let's have this specify that it's a float, because by default it's decimal, right? And then we clear our terminal, and then we compile again and see if the compiler is gonna complain. It doesn't complain. Now on to the main event. Let's see the main event. The main event is fine, and then we can just run our program, and there we go. So this is what happens. So if you're wondering how would you create a play bar, or the button that just does everything automatically, this is how it happens. So it's gonna go to murex.java, then javec. Let's zoom out for this one. Javec, and then we have Murex, we coder.java, and we have javec. Then we have main.java and java main. That's how you create the play button, and everything executes as it's supposed to. Let's just give it a thing, a moment or two. There we go. That's how you create a play button. So basically that's what's actually happening when you just go to your main your IDE does this on the background, so you don't get to see how the whole thing works. But then if you use a text editor and you do it manually, you get to understand how your program gets to be compiled, which is one of the most important things to understand, like knowing how your project or your program gets to be compiled, right? Cool. So let's just add one last cool thing, and then we'll end this tutorial. There we go. So this is murex.java, right? No, I want MurexTheCoder. Cool. So after that, let's have one last string name, right? And then in this case, what we're gonna do is that oh wait, let's just use them as they are. So we're gonna have a different constructor with parameters, right? So it's public murex the coder, and then I have char, which is gonna be let, and then I have decimal. Okay, let's just use it now. I think now it's very perfect. And then I have float, which is decimal. Now cool, you can just do it like this and say, why am I doing it there? MurexTheCoder, I don't know why my keys have moved there. And then I just have letter is equals to letter, and then I have decimal, which is equals to decimal. Cool. So in terms of spelling, everything is fine, right? Cool. And then I go to my main, right? And then in my main, I'm gonna call a different class, right? So this is what I called before, and then I call MurexTheCoder, and then it's the coder, just to make it different from that object. New Murex. Oh wait, but besides, we already have that. We can just update our object. Murex the coder, and then we have new, and then we say Murex the coder, and then we have a letter there. Let's just call it B, and then this we call 60.79, right? Oh, that's why we don't have that 60.79, and then we rest. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna copy this, and then I'm gonna paste it there, right? And then let's see what happens if I do this. It complain, or is it gonna run? There we go. So we have, oh, I made a mistake there. So that's a char, right? And here I am passing a wrong thing. So if it's a char, single quotes. There we go. We save that, clear this, and run again, and let's see what happens. There we go, 60.79 double. Oh, okay, now this is interesting, so let's do this. Oh, why am I putting I there? There we go, and then we have this. Cool, let's clear this and we run. There we go, and that's how it works. But then you will see that now we have messed up things now, right? Letter, it doesn't get the letter. Oh yes, it does. So you see what happened, right? So let's go to our main. This is MurexTheCoder, and then I'm accessing letter, and I'm accessing that, but it messed up everything. So let's just create a new object. Murex the, oh wait, let's do this first. Murex.java, right? Oh no, I'm opening the wrong one, so it's vim Murex the coder. Then what we're gonna do there is, let's use this dot that, just to explicitly specify, and then from there let's see what happens if we make that change, because it has to initialize the values. Let's see, there we go. So we just had to use this to specify. So basically we're saying letter equals to letter, right? But then we are confusing as to which letter we're referring to, because we have a letter from the parameter if we call this function. So we have a letter from the parameter, and then we have a letter from attribute, right? So this is confusing. So if you want to keep the same names as this one, so that you don't get confused in terms of what you're assigning, you just use this. So this is going to refer, it's going to point to the objects, right? And then you have, so basically you're going to have all the objects inside. So this is the object, of this class, and then it points to either the attributes or the methods inside this class, and then you just specify, okay, I want letter, and then I assign the letter this, which is that, right? And then you can see that you can have as many constructors as you can inside your class, right? You saw that we have this constructor which just does this, right? And then we have a constructor which uses the parameters to assign values. I do hope that this made sense and this tutorial wasn't that much complicated, and I shall see you guys next week. Do enjoy, and yeah, happy coding.